Welcome to Old Guy Tech,
the OGT.TV recording studio.
Technology for the rest of us.
Hi, and thanks for watching Old Guy Tech TV. And today we're here with Sheriff John D'Agostini of El Dorado County. John, thank you for coming.
Good to be here.
Thank you very much. And as most of our watchers know, you come once a month and kind of give us updates of what's going on around the county and basically all things law enforcement. And I have a few questions for you that it's popped up in my goes, and I thought I have some things to ask. But would you like to start with anything, or do you want me just to jump right into the questions?
Our budget's done.
Our budget's done. Good.
We're all done. We made it through. We gave back a $2.7 million fund balance at the end of the year. Status quo budget as to what we got last year, and we were still able to squeeze out 2 more positions out of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty good, because one of my questions, of course, was with our given constraints on the budgets, how have you been able to stretch the dollars in terms of crime prevention?
We've been doing great. Now, the 2 positions that we got, I think on a previous show, I talked about how by changing the schedule around, we are actually fielding more deputies per shift. So we have more deputies out there at any given time to respond to calls than before for less money. The 2 positions that we gain now, what we're going to do is one is going to be a elder protection unit detective that will be working in that unit. And then the other deputy, we're going to, rather than pull from patrol, we're actually going to fill another position and use that to start our resident deputy program, which will be on the West Slope, which will be the first resident deputy in a long time in Georgetown.
Good. Yeah. Excellent. Well, that's good news for Georgetown, because it's such a long call, isn't it? Yeah, it really adds up. So the budget is done. That's yay. Hooray.
Oh, yeah.
And it sounds like you did really good.
We are.
Right.
You know, the troops, everybody's pulling together and working hard to get through these times.
Yeah.
Which, in my opinion, we should have been doing all along.
Right.
But we have a new style now, and the change is working. We're getting there, and eventually this economy will turn. But we still need to stay focused and not have that quote unquote mission creep, and get back into the use it or lose it mentality, and as much as we can get. We'll provide the best service we can with the money that the county can afford. Another thing that we just did was RAND board, which is the remote access network dollars. $1 of every for every registration you pay on every vehicle you pay $1 that goes into this remote access network.
Okay.
It was legislated on years ago.
Right.
That money can only be used for quote unquote the benefit of the motoring public. Well, in years past, they were using that money to fund positions that ran the live scan machines in the jail.
Oh.
Well, kind of a big stretch there as to if it benefited the motoring public. Now, there's still a lot of jurisdictions that do it.
Sure.
The auditor, Joe Harn, had questioned it before. He questioned it with me. I looked into it, and he was right. It's not a proper use of the funds. So with the balance of funds that we had, we were able to get some more equipment that we are going to need that does benefit the motoring public. Some of it is some devices that, let's say we run into somebody on the road on a traffic stop, and they don't want to give us their name. They don't have a driver's license or whatever. We can take a fingerprint right from the road, or prove who you are. We can roll their fingerprint right on the road, goes through a database right to DOJ, comes back and says, yeah, this is the person, everything's fine.
That's real life CSI.
Real life CSI.
That's great.
Hopefully it'll, and that does benefit the motoring public.
Sure.
Now, what we ended up doing is we are going to suspend the collection of those funds for a year, because we have all that we need. We actually set up the fund, we encumbered the funds that we do have to take care of that equipment, and also some maintenance agreements we have on some equipment and replacement costs for some of the live scan machines. But even with that, we were still able to suspend those funds. So next year, you will not be paying that $1.
$1. Oh.
And then we can always come back when we have a need and
Right.
say the next
Right.
year we're going to collect it or whatnot. So we save the taxpayers about $150,000 next year.
You know, that's excellent because, first of all, California's licensing is one of the most expensive in the country anyway. And if you can reduce it even by $1, God bless you.
well.
You know.
Exactly.
Yeah, because it's and I'm glad to hear that it's being put into the right spot where it
bet.
needs to be, because that is a bit of a stretch. So let's talk about that a little bit. Are there still federal grants out there available to you?
Federal dollars?
federal dollars.
There's federal grants out there.
Yeah.
We look at the ones that are available, and then we look at the tails that come with them.
Right.
And
There's always strings.
because of that reason, the strings usually outweigh the cost, outweigh the benefits, and
Right.
and I also believe that we need to start weaning ourselves off those federal dollars, because as long as they hold us by that,
Right.
then they want other things from us.
You know, it's funny. You're not the first sheriff to tell me that. Actually, the first one who ever told me about federal dollars to watch the strings was Sheriff Dick Basilio.
Oh, sure.
Dick hated federal funds,
Yes.
and he refused to do anything with it. But my understanding is there are times where it gives a specific need. If you have one need that you really can do and you can get the correct grant.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You know, some of the funding we get in narcotics is used through some federal funds. Some of the CalEMA, the money that comes in through CalEMA for Homeland Security and all that other stuff, comes from CalEMA, but
Right.
it was two separate agencies. It was Department of Emergency, OES, Office of Emergency Services, and then Homeland Security.
Right.
They combined into CalEMA, California Emergency Management Association. So, but those federal dollars that do come into the state that we can tap into through the state level, they are grant funds.
Right.
A lot of our search and rescue funds and our OES funds, and a lot of those all come from, most of it comes from the federal government.
Right.
So,
Right.
but those strings, they're not so much strings as just they are requirements on specifics on what you can use it for.
Right.
But there's not really too many time studies, and then the
You know, it's
the later stuff.
It's probably something a smaller agency would have trouble doing because you're going to need manpower to be able
Stay
to
on
keep track
top
of it.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and that's one of the things that in most of these grants there are administrative costs built into them, which is a good thing for us. But from a taxpayer standpoint too, you're looking at it. Okay, we're paying just.
We're all
push
paying.
payment. We're all paying.
We're all paying.
Yeah.
If it's federal or state or whatever, we're all paying.
So, but I agree with Sheriff Basilio. If we don't need those federal dollars and we can work without those federal dollars, then I would rather do that without those federal dollars.
Yeah.
There's just some that we can't do without, and
And that's
they have
fine.
very little strings.
Right.
But again, keep in mind when we're doing other things. If I'm taking on the Forest Service or I'm taking on some other
Right.
federal agency, and they
Right.
say, okay, well, we're going to pull these then.
Uh-huh.
See, there's always that possibility down the road.
That sucks.
So.
You hear me? It sucks. One of the things that I was going to ask you a little bit about medical marijuana and the situation between the federal government's view and the state of California's view. And how do you operate your department with the federal government saying one thing and the state of California saying another? Basically, California says it's okay to have medical marijuana in dispensaries, and of course the feds coming in and saying, no, it's not. How do you juggle that?
Well, even first of all, in the law, the way I read the law, dispensaries are illegal.
Are illegal, okay.
No matter what, no matter which way you look at it, dispensaries are unlawful. You can't sell marijuana. You can't do it.
Okay.
Period. So, but on the bigger picture, and I've said this numerous times, I don't have a problem with what the people voted for in 1996 under the Compassionate Use Act.
Right.
Which was the use of marijuana for those people who are seriously ill, and marijuana provides relief. That's what the people believe they were voting for. That was the propaganda that was put out there at the time that that was going through.
Right.
If you remember, we had the little old lady she had extreme cataracts or glaucoma or whatever it was.
And it helped that.
Yeah, it helped that. And then you had the little old man in the wheelchair. I think he was dying of cancer. That's what the people believe they were voting for. That's not what they have.
Right.
That's not what we've gotten out of Proposition 215 and the resulting laws thereafter, 11.357 on, 11.362.5 on. How we deal with it and how I've instructed my guys how I want them to deal with it is we are, all the dispensaries that are in the county, we believe that they're operating illegally. However, there are so many cases right now under the California courts dealing with this, and we're also tied up with a case that is still holding out of Garden Grove, where if we do the hardline approach and go in and prosecute them, and for some reason the district attorney doesn't file or whatever,
right,
we are on the hook for the value of all that marijuana that we seized, and we have to pay it.
Wow.
Yeah, not good. So what we do is we work with the feds on those issues,
right,
and hopefully they'll start picking some of these up. As far as just medical marijuana and grows, the county is operating right now under two urgency ordinances. One is an outright ban on any new dispensaries, and the other one is for outdoor cultivation. And currently the way it stands is anybody with a doctor's recommendation can cultivate no more than 200 square feet of marijuana under cultivation per parcel. Has to be enclosed by a 6 to 8 foot opaque solid fence, secure opaque solid fence. That's what we're operating under right now. So what we do is, and I'll be completely honest, we are only responding on complaint. We don't have time to deal with all these little gardens.
Right.
We only operate on complaint, respond on complaint. My guys are doing huge gardens throughout the county. We're talking everywhere from 200-300 plants to 3,000-4,000 plants.
And these are the guys that are making money off of marijuana. It's not a compassionate use situation.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If we go out, if we have a neighbor that complains on another neighbor and they're not in compliance under the urgency ordinance, we do our best to work with them to let them get into compliance, to come into compliance before we take any enforcement action.
Okay.
And so far this season, which is the first year this urgency ordinance has been in place, we have not had any problems. Everybody, without fail, has complied.
Good. I guess.
They don't want, they understand that, look, you got 60 plants and you're spread out over 400 square feet here, and you got to secure them.
Right.
You got to get it down to 200 square feet.
Right.
Work with us here, and they do. They have been.
So if you guys are called out for something else and you roll up in a house and there's one plant sitting there,
usually we don't deal with it.
Don't deal with it. What about, now here's the other aspect. When you talk about securing this 200 square feet, I'm going to assume that we need to secure it so that children can't get into it.
Exactly.
That's why, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, right. So we want to make sure that the kids don't get into that. Yeah. Good. Well, it's good to know. I had no idea how you dealt with that. So
that's how we're dealing with it now. Now there will be a permanent ordinance that will roll out of this urgency ordinance. We're talking with both sides of the compassionate use users, those that are absolutely against it. We got them all at the table. We're having those meetings. We're talking to them, trying to come up with a happy medium here that we can deal with, that's enforceable,
right?
That means something,
right?
And we'll eventually get there.
Well, that's good, but that's all great information. I'm sure a lot of people are curious, just like I am, on how that works. So that's really super. I started thinking about, and I know some of the people watching the show are going to think I'm a bigot and all that. I started thinking about our undocumented workers that vote. So I said, well, how does law enforcement deal with coming into a scene with individuals that have absolutely no ID whatsoever? How do you deal with that?
Well, actually, that's a huge topic right now statewide, nationwide, really, and especially statewide. There was a bill that was just trying to be passed through this last legislative session. It was 1081 by Amiano, and I brought it with me because the governor just vetoed it.
Oh, okay.
1081 by Amiano. First I'll address this. If we come across undocumented aliens, and we call them what they are, illegal immigrants.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
If you're here illegally, if they aren't if they're not involved in a crime, if they're not a suspect in any way, typically we'll notify ICE of who we found and who they were and where they were.
Mm-hmm.
ICE is Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and we go on our way. If they were involved in a crime, we hook them up.
Right.
What 1081 was a bill where right now, if we have somebody in custody, the minute they're brought into custody and we roll their fingerprints, we'll know typically if they're an illegal alien or not.
Okay.
And we notify ICE. The way that we operate now is as soon as the legal process for that individual is done, maybe they're arraigned or they're released, or after arraignment, released on OR, or they go through the criminal process, they're sentenced to 10 days, whatever it is. As soon as they're done, we notify ICE, and they have a certain amount of time period to come pick them up. I believe it's 10 days.
Okay.
And then they come get them and they deport them. 1081 by Amiano, what it was going to do was say you can't do that anymore. Once they're done in California with anything criminal, you have to release them. If ICE isn't there standing outside the door to take them, then tough.
Okay.
They hit the streets again. The governor, thank goodness, with urging of California State Sheriff's Association, saw the flaws in this and vetoed it. There were a few crimes where we could hold on to them for deportation.
Right.
But they didn't include sexual abuse of a minor, some really heinous crimes, and you would think, well, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So my position is it's in the wording, illegal immigrant.
Right.
If you're illegal, you're illegal. There's nothing legal about being illegal. There's a right way to come here. There's a right way to work here. You can do that legally.
Absolutely.
So why not do it
Why
legally?
not do it that way?
Yeah.
I guess my thought was, I just was thinking, if law enforcement rolls into a argument going on by a couple of people and they're aliens, and I was just going, what do you do? What if it isn't such a crime that you're going to want to hook them up and take them to jail, but yet you need to make a report on it? You can't. There's no name. So you're just kind of, what do? Do you just let it go, or?
Well, we usually find out who they are. They have a Mexican ID or a Mexican driver's license, or.
So usually they have some form of ID.
We have some way of positively identifying them.
Right.
It's the whole illegal thing that I think to me it's very simple. Again, like I said, illegal immigrant.
Right.
Illegal.
Right. Yeah.
To me, it's very.
What part of illegal don't you understand?
What part of illegal don't you understand?
Yeah, exactly.
If you want to come here and work as a Mexican citizen, and you get a green card or work visa or whatever you want to get, then that's fine.
Right.
But if you want to be here permanently, then become an American citizen. Because the bottom line is that these illegals that are in the United States, whether California, New Mexico, Arizona, or throughout this nation, they don't hold what we hold in our hearts.
Right.
They don't have our constitutional DNA.
Right.
They don't have what our country's beliefs are. That's what it takes to be an American. And if you want to be an American, then be an American and do it the right way. If you want to come in here and work and then go back home, then do that the right way. But if you want to come in here and live off our system and, God forbid, get to vote and everything else for things that you don't have a clue about,
right,
because you don't have this Republican DNA, and I don't mean Republican the party line.
No, right.
I mean
right.
our constitutional republic,
right.
Republican DNA in your heart. That's the problem.
Yeah. So, it's amazing how if we even mention showing ID to register nowadays, the press is all over the place. They're going, oh my God, you can't say that. You can't ask them for ID. But you've got to prove that you live in the area you're going to vote in. But you
right.
can't ask them for ID. What do they come in with some neighbor's utility bill and that's okay? I'll tell you a story. I remember going during JFK's election when I was a little kid with my father, and I remember going with my father to register to vote. What he had to do is he had to sit down, and there was a paragraph. First, you had to be literate to vote in this country. He had to read that paragraph.
In English.
In English, absolutely. Right. There was no choice, no other languages. Ballots weren't printed in anything other than English. And so he had to read the paragraph, he had to prove he was literate, he had to give ID. Now, we have gone so far the other way.
Absolutely.
It just, how many people that we are voting now that aren't citizens, don't have the right to vote, or are dead? That's the way I look at it. Maybe there's something wrong with me, but...
No, I think you got it right, Rob. I mean, this country, it's not right. This country was founded on immigrants. We're all immigrants.
Right.
At one point or another,
absolutely,
we were all immigrants, except for the American Indians. They're the only true Americans that were here before it was a nation. So we're all immigrants. And I don't know. I don't know the story of your ancestors, but my ancestors came from Italy,
right,
and from Portugal,
right.
They came over on the boat. They jumped through all the hoops. They took all the tests. They did everything they had to do to become an American citizen. Now, the Italians, when they came over here, they learned to speak English. Why? Because that's what Americans spoke, was English.
That's right.
The Portuguese, they came over, they learned to speak English. Why? Because that's what we spoke.
Yeah.
And
it was the same thing. My parents basically came from Russia and Czechoslovakia. When the family came over here, they learned English. There was no longer speaking.
And they were proud of it.
And they were very proud of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so we've gotten so far away from that. I worry about the backbone of this country and how we're doing and where we're going. And I just see things that I don't understand. And I've got some friends that are very liberal people. And in some respects, I call myself an enigma because some things on social levels I believe in kind of more of a liberal thing. But fiscally, as far as United States security goes and immigration goes, I feel very strongly. You want to become an American, you come over to the United States, and like you said, you do it legally. Mm-hmm. You come in here, you do what it takes. You want to become a citizen, you take the classes and pass it, and you speak English. Mm-hmm. And I know I'm going to get chastised over this, but that's my opinion.
That's right.
That's our First Amendment right, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hopefully the Sacramento Bee that's a partner of ours doesn't get mad at me now. But anyway, it is what it is. And I think you're absolutely right with it. So we're of like mind on that. I just look at the election coming up now, and I'm asking myself, how many people that really should not be voting are voting for this election? And can that have an impact? I don't know.
Well, when you look at local races like we have here in El Dorado County that are decided on, the last school board was decided by 9 votes.
Yeah,
I believe,
yep. And
votes.
We've had city councils by one
vote. So
yeah,
absolutely every vote.
It can certainly in the local smaller areas, it can have a big impact.
Well, extrapolate that out.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I don't do statistics, but it just makes, I'm always thinking about little things all the time. My mind's always going, and why is it this way? How come we're this way? Well, it's, I don't want to get on anymore. Somebody will get mad at me here, so.
No, that's okay.
So this was a fun part.
It's all right.
This was a fun part for me. We had a good time with that. But so something happened recently in our county, and I wanted to know how your agency would deal with this situation. We had a retired CHP officer that I have known for almost 30 years, unfortunately, that was arrested for possession of stolen firearms. And how is that handled? I mean, on the law enforcement side, what happens when somebody with either current or past law enforcement, what do they go through as far as if they have to be arrested and put in a jail? Are they segregated? Is it entirely a different situation for an individual like that than a regular citizen?
No,
okay.
It's not entirely different. We try and respect who they were and what their past was as best we can.
Right.
If we don't have an extra cell, we don't have an extra cell. And I don't want to talk too much about this case.
I won't talk. I don't want to talk particulars. Yeah.
But I don't. I'll give you one recent one.
Okay.
When the last DSA president the prior DSA president, Don Atkinson,
Right.
when he was arrested. Because he was an El Dorado County deputy, or El Dorado County sergeant,
Right.
Sheriff's
Right.
sergeant.
Yeah.
His interaction with everybody and how his ties to everybody, we took him to Sacramento.
Mm-hmm.
I called the sheriff of Sacramento and asked if we could house somebody down there for a while, and he absolutely agreed. So for officer safety reasons,
Right.
because of the
Right.
connections, and for his safety and everything else, he was transferred to Sacramento. Other than that, he was treated no differently than anybody else. Anybody else would. I don't believe in that. If you're gonna cross the line,
Yeah.
well, then you get treated like everybody else, and we treat everybody with respect.
Oh,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
we, as, but
Oh, I
as we
understand
can
that,
until,
yeah.
until we get a reason not to.
Yeah.
But
Well, I was curious about that because, and you answered my question really. If this individual that's had worked up here, if he would actually be in our jail, or did he go to another area because he may have still have had interactions with individuals in our jail? Did he end up staying in our jail? Or?
no, I think he bailed immediately.
Went somewhere. Oh, he bailed
he did.
immediately. Okay,
I believe
yeah.
so.
Well, I was just curious because I think for their safety, I still believe that you're innocent until proven guilty. So I want to make sure that this individual gets his due justice, of course. And I was just curious for his safety how it was handled. So that's why I brought that up. One of the other things that I was reading for some of the some jails have had, and I think it's been Midwest, they've had releases of individuals that really shouldn't have been released. It was like an accidental release. I think that has happened. Have we ever had a situation like that up here?
Not that I'm aware of.
Not that you're aware of.
Sure hope. Well,
Yeah.
not from our side. Now, we had the recent deal in South Lake Tahoe where a suspect was convicted and was going to going to go to state prison.
Mm-hmm.
And he pled with the court for just a few hours to take care of some personal affairs. And the judge granted it, and went to the person that was driving him around. They went to a few places, and then they went to, I believe it was Barton Memorial Hospital in Tahoe, and he beat feet, and we haven't found him since.
Well, I don't think you'll get any sympathy from a judge the next time, huh?
But that wasn't a mistake, a mistake
Yeah.
release. Not that I'm aware of. I hope it never happens. I don't see how it could happen in our facilities.
Okay.
That would
You know,
be
what
very
surprised me
difficult.
is I've never heard of a judge letting somebody go for a couple of hours to do a few things. That's the first time I've ever heard of that.
Me too.
Yeah, probably the last time, huh?
Yeah, I believe so.
Because that had made that judge feel.
I don't.
I
don't know, and I don't.
I don't
know
want
what
the anger
judge
of the
it was.
judge. I'll tell you that. I've got some good friends that are judges. I don't want them mad at me. Holy cow! Let's look at what El Dorado County's most pressing law enforcement issue is right now. What would you consider the most pressing issue as far as law enforcement in El Dorado County?
From a community standpoint, I would say it would still be some property crimes. We
Property
still have a
crimes,
pretty
okay.
high rate of property crimes. It's lower than it has been, but I still think it's a little bit high. Our guys are doing a heck of a job. We just they just arrested an individual a few weeks ago who has been connected to many, many burglaries in the county and car thefts, vehicle thefts. They're putting together a lot of good cases. It's the old kind of whack-a-mole theory where as soon as they knock one and then another one pops up. So,
Yeah.
but they're doing a fantastic job, like I said. I'd like to see that go down.
Yeah.
But I can't put any real ideas or any way to make it go
How
down
to
other
make it
than
go down?
they're doing.
Right.
Like I said, they're doing a fantastic job. We have the SCT team that's helping investigations
Mm-hmm.
out, patrols out, just working their butt off doing this.
So my guess is these individuals are taking the low-hanging fruit and going to the easiest opportunity homes, people that either don't lock their doors or windows or secure their property in any way, don't have a pet or a dog.
Well, you would think now they're doing it all. I mean, we're still getting door kicks and window smashes, and they're going
Really?
in. Yes, they're doing that. It's just happening.
Yeah, I remember last time you said it was up, but it's come down a little bit from
It has
that.
come down.
Yeah.
Crime across the board on average, is down. And that's, maybe it's because we have so many CCWs, I don't know. But
let's hope.
It is down.
Yeah, yeah.
But that part of it's not, I don't believe is down far enough.
Out of my idle curiosity, what are these people stealing? I mean, everything and anything, I assume. But
yeah, everything. And it's, the valuables, the typical stuff, the jewelry, the guns.
Right.
The electronics, televisions, laptops, computers, those kinds of things. The stuff they can get the most quickest buck for in a turnaround on the streets to a sense.
Yeah.
Prescription meds in the medicine shop.
Oh yeah.
Still
I can see that being a real big one.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I wouldn't even know where to begin how to deal with something like this. Where do these people get rid of this property? There's whole gangs running.
Changes hands 3 or 4 times before it finally hits somebody that's going to put it to use or whatnot.
Wow.
There's secondhand shops down in the valley and on down everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Yeah. And they don't check to make sure it's not stolen or anything, huh?
Well, and the thing is, do you have a serial number for everything?
No.
See?
Yeah. I know, and I've thought about that.
Exactly.
Other than my firearms. Every one of my firearms I have a number on, but I don't have a number on my TV.
There's actually some companies out there that will come to your house, and they're bonded.
Yeah.
So you don't got to worry too much about that. They're bonded, and they'll do an inventory. They videotape everything.
Yep.
They write the serial numbers down. You get a nice binder and some nice discs, and then they keep some others off site in case they get those when they do your house, if you get burglaries and everything, burglarized. Because if you think about it, it can be quite time consuming.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to get through everything.
Well, I like the videotaping idea. I was thinking about that business about 15 years ago because of a fire I had. Mm-hmm. We had a small fire, and we lost some stuff. And, of course, the insurance company said, well, do you have serial numbers? And I went,
no.
Of course not. And I can look at the malted mess, and there's no serial numbers. And they go, well, how about a sales receipt? So I started thinking, one of the things they said, well, what about a videotape? You got a videotape of stuff. Well, I happen to have a videotape of that. It was a holiday season,
right?
And so there was, okay, here's my holiday tape, here's our stuff. We were fortunate, but that's a good idea. I think that's good advice for people. Yeah. Take your little video cameras and spend a little time videotaping your stuff.
Yep, videotape your stuff.
Not
Lay
bad
out all
idea.
your jewelry on the bed on a nice white sheet and get it all identified. And anything with the serial number, write it down somewhere. Because without a serial number in the system, it's never going to get recovered.
Right.
Very rarely, unless it's hooked up with some other items and they're so unique that our detectives can tell that's where it came from.
Right.
And then have you identify the rest of it.
Yeah, I know. Even with firearms, it's difficult. Even with a serial number. One of the things I used to find out is that the feds in the state, DOJ and BATF, many times don't talk to each other, which always struck me as odd. Every now and then I would get a call on a firearm that I may have sold 20 years ago, and they go, by the way, who'd you sell that to? And it's like,
really?
You've got the records,
right.
Especially if it's a handgun. It's in DOJ's, somewhere. I said, why are you calling me? Well, we're trying, that type of thing. So typical government, it just, it's pretty funny. So let's see. I had a couple of good questions. I know I had one more I thought was going to kind of wrap things up. I remember last time we were here, you were talking about the history of the sheriff. Mm-hmm. So because you were going to have that whole speech that you were going to do and everything. So let's just end this by saying, what do you see as the sheriff's primary role?
To support and uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Sounds good to me.
The oath of office.
That's it, yeah.
The oath of office. Protect those that we serve under that guideline, under that oath.
Right.
Bottom line.
Let me throw a worst case scenario out.
Mm-hmm.
Federal government goes ahead and votes in some form of gun ban. Let's say that they're going to say handguns are no longer allowed in the United States. I'm not going to put you on the spot, but how do you think most local law enforcement would deal with that? Do you think they would step right in line and say, yeah, I'm going to set up this office that people can turn things in?
No, absolutely not. And I wish we would go back and overturn the ones that have the gun legislation that has happened that is unconstitutional.
Right.
And fix some of those. But no, I've talked to a lot of my peers about that.
Yeah.
Up and down the state, in different states, Oregon, Nevada. And no. Number one, because it's unconstitutional. Number two, I don't want a bunch of dead deputies.
Right.
And that's what would happen.
You know that's what's going to happen. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, this came up during Katrina, and New Orleans Police Department, they started confiscating guns for absolutely no reason. And
people gave them up.
Yeah, and people gave them up. Now, fortunately, there's been legislation passed since then that says no, law enforcement does not have the power to do that. But that was kind of telling. It was kind of telling me, because I said exactly what you said. Why would I give it up? Especially under those circumstances. They're not there to protect you. There's not enough officers to protect you during a situation of a major crisis like Katrina was, right? Mm-hmm. It's not possible. So I just can't understand that. But anyway, that's just my ramblings.
No, that's good, and that's a very valid question. There's so much in this country that I just got back from. A couple of weeks ago, I went to Constitutional Sheriff's Peace Officers Association's conference. Right. That was the one I told you I was going to give that presentation on. Gave it there. And then just Monday, I was at the National Constitutional Sheriff's Association. They had a little thing going on in Reno, and I went up there for that. And there's a quote out there by Jefferson, and I have it somewhere.
Right.
But it's basically, our Constitution needs to be interpreted as to what the framers had in their minds when they wrote it.
Yeah.
Not as it's been morphed into over these many years. And that therein is where the problem lies in my mind. The biggest problem is our interpretation. The liberal, I'll clarify it with this. So many times when cases come before the courts, what it does is it gives a liberal judicial branch an opportunity to liberally interpret legislation enacted by a liberal legislature.
Right.
So the outcome is going to be a liberal interpretation of the law and the Constitution and the constitutionality of that law.
Right.
No win.
Well, you know what? People are always talking about the Constitution. Is it a living document?
No.
See, I agree with you. It's not a living document.
It means today the same as it meant in 1787 when our forefathers signed it.
Right.
When it was ratified.
And I agree with you, but that seems to be where the liberal side, the anti-gun sides, or whatever, that seems to be the way they're going. They're going, oh, it's a living document. Things change. I don't believe it.
Well, some things do change, but not as to the interpretation stays the same.
I think the Bill of Rights, okay, I think that is an indefinite, static document. It is what it is without change.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Going further on, I mean, because we have added to our Constitution, prohibition being one, and the voter rights, that situation. And I think that those were needed at that time. So possibly we have a document that is both.
Well, no, it is what it is. The framer, you're right. But the framers of the Constitution, our forefathers, gave us a mechanism in order to change it, and that was to add the amendments.
Correct.
They gave us the process to do that in Article 5.
Right.
If you want something done, that's how you fix it.
Yeah.
Now, there's a lot of people right now, and I don't know if you've been involved or looked into this at all, there are a lot of people calling for an Article 5 convention. The problem is that I'm not sure if we want to
open that can of worms.
No, you don't want to do that.
Yeah, I'm 100% behind you on that. I don't want to go there.
No.
Because you never know what you're going to open up. And unfortunately, you never know what the Superior Court is going to do.
Exactly.
We've seen it recently where they flipped a bit with Chief Roberts going in a direction that nobody thought he was going to go into. So here we are again with interpretations by individuals on the Supreme Court that have been appointed by whom? Some Bush, some Obama, some Clinton, right? So we have the situation where you just don't know where the Supreme Court is going to go. And I don't understand that, because my understanding of the Supreme Court is they only look at what's constitutional and not. And they've gone beyond that. So here I am, I'm crazy again.
No, you're not. No, you're not. You'll get it. And I think a lot of people a lot of the American people are waking up and getting that.
Yeah.
And they're starting to. I mean, how many folks out there do you know have actually read the Constitution?
Yeah, exactly.
Actually read the Constitution. What's Article 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? What do they actually mean?
Right.
You know.
Right. Well, you ask them. Do you know what the Bill of Rights is? They can't even tell you.
Yeah.
So
what can government do? Well, they can do this. Well, it's all listed in Article 1, Section 8.
Yeah.
Read it. It's all right there.
Yeah.
If it's not there, they can't do it. And the 10th Amendment says, or not the 10th Amendment, the 10th Amendment says,
right.
if it isn't
there,
and it's
can't
it's
be
to the
done.
states. It's the states that have it,
Right.
not the federal government. They're
Right.
supposed to be impotent. They're not supposed to have all the juice that they have.
Well, see that, and then it comes back into the states' rights issue. We have situations, and it's a mixed bag. In some respects, I understand states' rights and being able to enact what they feel is necessary over the rest of the states. But however, I have a problem with a situation like the Second Amendment, when a state goes ahead and makes a decision that, they're going to make their own interpretation of what that amendment is. Then we have a problem.
Well, but then again, even the states, that's where the supremacy comes into, because the states can't violate that Constitution.
They're not supposed to, but they
Not
seem to.
supposed to. Well,
you're
right.
Yeah, I mean, there's states, Illinois, New York. You look at those two, with those major cities, Chicago and New York. They do anything they want, and it doesn't matter if there's a constitution or not.
You're right.
So,
and all those people that did that take an oath of office.
That's right.
Because in order to hold public office, you have to take an oath. That's in the Constitution.
That's right. That's right. Yep. I've done it too, and I've sat on public agencies. I've had to take that oath as well. And I take it seriously. Some I don't think you ever even hear it.
They probably never read the Constitution.
Yeah, they probably not. I don't know. We won't go there. But hey, you know what? I'm going to wrap this thing up. It's really neat talking to you, and I like this give and take. We're going to do more of this. This is fun, and I want to get you guys fired up too. And we're going to have some neat things coming up on election night that we'll be announcing to our public and to our sheriff and some of the others. And we're going to want you guys to come watch us on election night, because we're going to have some neat things going on. John, I want to thank you again very much for coming.
Thank you.
I really, really enjoy these days. And hey, for you guys out there, come on and watch Old Guy Tech TV. We need your help.
They will support you. They will do referrals between clients. You can't ask for a more complete marketing package.
We love the windfall!
And you can too. Think advertising with the Windfall couldn't get any better? Well, it just did. For only $125 for a 30-second commercial filmed by Old Guy Tech TV, you can be seen and heard.